Hi guys, and here we are in X-Plane 10, and today we're going to start the first leg of a round Britain coastal tour. Just looking in the background, you can see a train going by and some cars on the road. We're currently sitting at Cambridge Airport. I'm starting at Cambridge because that's where I was born. I don't live there now, but it is my hometown. So I'm going to start from there today, and we're going to fly out to the east coast and then head up and probably land at Humberside Airport. So we're cold and dark at the moment, so the first thing I'm going to do is get some power into the plane. But I just want to show you which plane I'm going to be using. This is a free add-on Piper Seminole, which I downloaded from the xplane.org forums. There's lots and lots of free aeroplanes and scenery and all that sort of stuff you can get. So quite a nice little plane. So let's go back inside and get some power. So we need to switch these on. Fuel pumps, lights. There we go, turn on the avionics. Okay, so that's got some power. Fuel, we've got about half a tank, so that's fine. We should be fine with half a tank. So I'm going to push the mixture up, a little bit of throttle, and then we can start the engine. So you should see them start here. So I'm going to click and hold the left engine first. There we go. And now the right one. And that's us started up. So here's the autopilot settings, which we'll be using once we're off the ground. I just need to set the transponder. So we're going to be flying VFR, so that's always 7,000. We've got the ADF automatic direction finder frequency here set to 328. I know that we roughly need to be sort of heading east once we get off the ground. I'm also on a tablet using an Android app called Moving Map. I just searched in the App Store for X-Plane, and there's an app there called Moving Map, which gives you an airplane moving across Google Maps, so you can see exactly where you are. So I'm just going to set that up now, so just bear with me a minute, and we'll be back and getting off the ground shortly. Okay guys, there we go. I've just zoomed that in so I can see what I'm doing on there. So let's just pop outside and just check that everything looks okay. Yep, our engines are started, that's fine. So what I'm going to do now is taxi out to the runway here at Cambridge. Just use the brakes to regulate the speed whilst I'm taxiing. I'm going to head out here to the taxiway. You can see the runway out there in front of us. And here we go, we need to head up across here. We don't need the full length of the runway at Cambridge, so I'm going to turn right here out to the runway. No need to go right down to the very end. Fine, so we'll head down here. So there's the runway right in front of us now. I've got the weather conditions set on calm and clear. It is actually calm and very sunny outside today, but got it set on calm. It's not downloading real weather from the internet, so mainly so that we can see the scenery and so on as we go. So let's line up on the centre line. There we go, that will do us. So I'm going to push the throttles up to maximum. And off we go. We're going to fly at about 700 feet so that we can see the scenery as we go. So we'll bit off the ground. There we go. I'll get ready to fix the altitude in the autopilot once we get to about 700. Getting there now. So around about there somewhere will do us. So that should be the altitude and heading set. Now I want to be basically heading straight for the NDB, non-directional beacon, at Ipswich, and that's the frequency that I've put into the automatic direction finder there, 328. 397 is the Great Yarmouth one that we'll fly to once we get to Ipswich. You can see this arrow coming round. I want this arrow here pointing dead at 12 o'clock, and that means we're flying straight towards it. So hopefully we're not going to be far off that. So the heading settler, we'll see how close we are. Go a little bit further to the right. Just head across here. Okay, so that's pretty good. That's near enough dead on 12 o'clock. I'm going to put the undercarriage up. If I can get out to the circle view quick enough, you can just see the wheels retracting. So undercarriage is up, and we're on our way towards Ipswich. So Ipswich is in Suffolk. We're currently flying over the Cambridgeshire countryside, very flat, an area known as the Fens. Actually most of it is below sea level. Full title is Cambridgeshire and the Isle of Ely, E-L-Y. Ely's a cathedral city, but it was an island before the Fens were all reclaimed by the Dutch when they came over. You can see a fair bit of traffic on the road below us. I think that's the A14 probably. Runs from Cambridge down to Ipswich, so it could well be the A14. But yeah, the Dutch came over, a guy called Vermuyden I believe. They built what are called dikes, like little ditches around every side of the fields, and then they take the water away to the rivers and then out to the sea. So the Fens never flood. They've got some of the best flood defences in the world in those dikes. Even though they're originally below sea level, there's now lots of towns and villages scattered across the Fens, and a lot of farmland, and virtually anything grows in the soil around there, it seems. So we're heading out across Cambridgeshire, then we'll be going into Suffolk. Cambridge is about 15 miles from the Suffolk border. Once you get to Newmarket, that's actually just inside Suffolk. And then we'll fly down to Ipswich, where we'll pick up the course to the river and just follow the river down to the coastline. And then we'll turn north from there, head up towards Great Yarmouth, and then carry on a little bit further to Humberside Airport, hopefully, is where I'm intending to land. So you can see traffic on the roads below us. Once we sort of get to Ipswich, we'll have a zoom in on the city itself, and if you see traffic lights, you will see that the traffic lights actually work in X-Plane. So they will be changing red, yellow, green and back to red and so on. There's something slightly strange about the road traffic in X-Plane, and I don't know why this is. This is hopefully something they can address going forward. But if we see a dual carriageway or motorway, you will find the cars all drive on the left, but on any other road they seem to drive on the right. And those cars below us at the moment, I think, are driving on the right hand side of the road, which is obviously wrong for the UK. I know we're awkward, but we drive on the left. Obviously all of Europe drive on the right, and the vast majority of the world drive on the right, to be honest, but in the UK we drive on the left. Unless you're in X-Plane, in which case some of the roads you seem to drive on the right, which is a bit strange. Would make some interesting junctions if, you know, you've got traffic meeting from one direction driving on the left and the other direction driving on the right. It would make for an interesting junction if ever there was one. But there you go, that's the way it is. So let's just have a look outside again. So this is the circle view. I'm using my Cytec ProFlight yoke, radio panel and autopilot panel. We'll just have a little look around our airplane. So that's us. And another view in X-Plane I particularly like is the still spot view. You can see the shadow on the ground. That's the shadow of our airplane there. And that's us. So there's the shadow. So you actually see the shadow of your airplane as well on a nice day. So as I say, we're following what looks like a fairly major road, so I suspect that is the A14. The A14 runs all the way down sort of from the M1, M6 area going up to Birmingham, goes all the way down Peterborough, Cambridge, then down to Felixstowe via Ipswich. And Felixstowe's quite a big port, lots of fishing and lots of ferries, and you get lots and lots of lorries on the A14. So it's a very busy artery linking up to roads like the A1, M1, M6, all heading further north. It's nice to see a bit of road traffic in X-Plane, even if some of it is on the wrong side of the road. At least it's a bit more sort of realistic scenery if you've got traffic on roads, I always think. In terms of setting your graphic options, you go into the settings menu on X-Plane and rendering options, and then you can set everything in there. If you're finding that the simulator's crashing on you, then you've probably got the rendering options set a bit too high for your video card's graphic capabilities, so if you dial down a couple of settings you'll probably find that it's much better. But I think you can see this looks pretty good, I think. And I'm using a GeForce GTX 770 graphics card. It was a pretty high-end card when they came out, but I think they've been superseded by updated cards from Nvidia, but seems to do a pretty good job and isn't struggling to load graphics in this, so seems good. X-Plane is constantly reloading graphics as you go, so that ADF is not dead on 12 o'clock, so looks like to head directly to Ipswich we need to be over here a bit, so I'll just, there you go, that's good enough. That's almost bang on 12 o'clock now, so we're heading straight towards that NDB. If you turn on ADF1 here, I was expecting to hear some tones that suggest that we've got the frequency, but no, not hearing them today, not tomorrow, doesn't matter. Okay, so as I said, we're flying at 700, so we're flying very low, but the reason for that is so that we can see all this scenery. You can get an idea of exactly what things look like in X-Plane. You can get a number of free scenery packages. GB Pro is a good one. Needs various libraries installed with it, but if you just search GB Pro for X-Plane, you can go to the website and it tells you what libraries to download and all that stuff, and you just basically unzip everything and put it in the custom scenery folder and away you go. There is also a paid add-on called Urban Max, and Urban Max, as you might imagine, maxes out the graphics around all the cities, so you know the cities look exactly pretty much the way they should do. So we're coming over a bridge now, you can see below. I'm not sure if that's a rail bridge or a road bridge. Can't see any trains at the moment, but hopefully we'll come across a train or two as we go. You will see freight trains and passenger trains in X-Plane at times. I think once we get near Ipswich, we'll probably see trains there, I think. Now I can't remember whether this plane has a 3D cockpit, so I'm going to try it and see. No, it doesn't. If it just goes to a forward view like that, you haven't got a 3D cockpit, so we need to stick with forwards with panel. Some of the free planes that come with X-Plane, things like the Baron B-58 and the Cessna 172 do have 3D cockpits, I believe. But this is a plane I downloaded free. You just go to www.x-plane.org, sign up to the forums, which is free anyway, and then you can search till your heart's content for utilities, scenery, planes, and you'll find lots and lots of freeware in there, and also some payware. So we're getting close to Ipswich now, so I'm just going to have a look at the local map in X-Plane. I've got my scrolling map showing me where I am on my tablet, but we'll have a look at the local map to get an idea. So just central aircraft, so that's us. We've come out of Cambridge and flown across here, and now we're fast approaching the NDB at Ipswich, and you can see the frequency there, 328. And once we get there, we'll carry on to the coast just by following the river at Ipswich, and then we'll turn north up the East Anglian coast. So if anybody doesn't know the UK, we're heading east and going to be picking up the east coast of the UK around the region known as East Anglia. So we'll be in Suffolk when we get to the coast, and then we'll head up Norfolk to Great Yarmouth, and then through Norfolk and up into Lincolnshire, and eventually to Humberside, where we land at Humberside Airport. So we should get sight of the river fairly soon. Just going to zoom in a bit and see if we can see traffic lights yet. No, not yet. As we zoom in, you can see quite a few cars on the road. So hopefully, I think Ipswich will sort of be up here somewhere. So let's just keep heading across there. So you can see a fair bit of traffic on the road, so I think that's quite good. As you get nearer to the cities, then you will see more traffic, because obviously it's the city and there's going to be more traffic around. That looks like a train there. We've got a freight train going through there by the look of it. I was hoping around here somewhere we would see some traffic lights. Ah, there's one there. I don't know if you saw that, but that's green at the moment. Just keep your eye on that green traffic light there, and you should see that change. It's green at the moment. There's a train going through. Okay, it's gone yellow and now it's gone red, so that light has just changed there. I think I saw another one here. These are possibly traffic lights here. You can see the train coming through. Yeah, I think there's a light changing there. I think that's a traffic light there that's currently on green, so let's see if that changes. Yep, that's gone amber now, and now red, so you can see the traffic lights in X-Plane work. And there's the river that I'm intending to follow. So we're just flying over Ipswich now. The roads on the outskirts of Ipswich are quite busy, and as I say, we just saw that freight train go through. So you do see trains. There's another train there. You can see a freight train there. Hopefully you guys can see that, just going across here. So you will see trains and so on, particularly when you're around the cities. That's where you tend to see them most. You can see another traffic light there. There's a traffic light there that's on red at the moment. Hopefully that's going to change in a second. Yes, I think that's changed to green now. So hopefully you can see the traffic lights and see that they do in fact work. When you fly over any fairly major city and zoom your view in, you'll see traffic lights and see them changing. So you can take a look outside again and see how we're doing. There we are, that's us. All looks well. One thing I haven't done, which I should have done, is turn off the landing lights, which is actually that switch there. So apologies for that, I should have done that. when it does come to the point of us landing, we've got flaps here we can apply, and obviously we'll reduce our speed. Landing speed is around about 60, I believe. So, 60, 65 is what we'll be trying to land at when we get there. So everything looks fine at the moment. Once we get close enough to Humberside Airport for it to appear on the local map, I'll be having a look to find the ILS frequency, and we'll be carrying out an ILS landing hopefully, which enables the plane to automatically find where the runway is and fly towards it. The instrument landing system, basically on either side of the runway there's a signal sent out by a transmitter. The plane goes across and gets a tone that says, right, this is the left hand side of the runway. Then it gets another one that says, right, this is the right hand side, and therefore it knows where the centre line is. And there's a third transmission for the glide slope, and the plane will establish on the glide slope and go down straight to the runway hopefully. So it sort of automates landing, and then once we're on the ground obviously we put the brakes on and come to a stop before the end of the runway so that we can vacate the runway and find somewhere to park. So I'm going to start turning now to follow this river down here. So we're near enough at the Suffolk coast now. Once we do turn up the coast, we'll pass Aldborough, Aldeburgh, Aldborough, nice little town. Southwold, nice little seaside town, little harbour. And then we'll go up Lowestoft, which is quite a large harbour. Lots and lots of fishing boats go in and out of Lowestoft. There's a very famous bridge there that lifts up, a bit like Tower Bridge in London, to let the boats through. And the road traffic is traffic light controlled, and you can get stuck there for quite a while if there's 3 or 4 boats coming through. So we're now following the course of this river, as I say, to the Suffolk coastline. Quite a pretty area. Obviously there's a lot of it is farmland, lots of fields and so on around this area of the country. One of the less built up areas of the UK, I suppose. So we're going to turn now to head north up the coast towards Great Yarmouth. Now the Great Yarmouth frequency, as I said, 397, is already set in ADF2, and ADF2 is this other arrow here, which is currently pointing 9 o'clock. We want to get that round to about 12 o'clock. That'll be an approximate idea. We're heading towards Yarmouth, but we are going to be trying to follow the coastline as much as possible. I'm just turning now, we're slightly out over the sea, so I'm just turning to get us heading back towards the coastline. So you change the heading with this heading bug here, and then obviously you can fly the ADF directly at the target NDB, or manually if you like follow the coastline. This is a fairly large nature reserve we're coming up on here, I believe. Lots of wading birds and the such like in the summer. Lots of ornithologists, that's not an easy word to say. Lots of ornithologists come across to see the various birds that do visit this area. I think it's a nice area in the UK. I've lived in this area pretty much all my life. I said I was born in Cambridge, I now live in Lincolnshire. So I've got down the sort of area where I live as we get up there. So the idea is that we're going to, over a number of legs, fly around the entirety of the British coastline, end up coming back to around about Ipswich area, and then finally land back at Cambridge. So there'll be, I don't know, 6-7 episodes, something like that. So I'd be interested for you guys if you want to comment as to whether this is something you want to see or whether there is other things you prefer. Maybe heavy passenger jets flying to somewhere in Europe or something. Pretty much up for anything. It's quite nice sometimes to have a change and fly a light aircraft like this when you've been flying 787s and 777s or whatever. So as I say, I do use the SciTech ProFlight yoke and also ProFlight radio panel or multi-panel. Very handy, they'll give you a much greater sense of realism. You can fly X-Plane with a mouse. If you download the demo, which has a small demo area in the USA, you can fly with the mouse, but I found it quite hard work to try and fly with a mouse. So I did have a Black Widow joystick, which not only has a joystick but also a throttle control. But then since I've moved to the ProFlight yoke system and radio panel etc, and I wouldn't be without them, to be honest. So as you can see, we're following this river now, and very shortly going to be following the coastline. Go across this nature reserve, and then we'll shortly be up the coastline and heading up towards Aldborough, Southwold and so on. Aldborough and Southwold are very small places. You do get a number of people stay there in the summer, use it as a base to tour Suffolk and Norfolk possibly. Go up to Norfolk, you've got all the Norfolk Broads where people take boat trips or hire motorboats to drive themselves or whatever. That's quite a pretty area, quite a nice journey on a boat. I've done that. So I think that may be Aldborough there, and that's probably Southwold there, and Lowestoft will be out here somewhere. So let's just follow up the coast here, try and follow this road a little bit, coastal road connecting a couple of towns. So we are right on the East Anglian coastline here. So I do think it's a nice area, East Anglia. Heading south of here, down through Suffolk, you go for Felixstowe, Clacton, past the Thames estuary and down to Kent. But we'll be coming the other way eventually once we've done the northern section. We'll come down the west coast, then round the south coast, across to Kent, and then back up towards Suffolk, and then eventually back into Cambridge. That's the plan, assuming all goes well. So you can see redrawing the scenery there. You really don't see that unless you're zoomed in like this, in which case you'll see trees appearing slowly and so on. But generally you don't really see it drawing the scenery, it just does it and that's it. I say how high you can have the graphic settings in X-Plane really does depend on what your video card and system is capable of. When I bought my current desktop PC, I was looking to buy one specifically really for flight simulation in X-Plane. And when I checked the X-Plane forums, obviously we all have a limited amount of money. It'd be nice to be able to buy the very best of everything, but you generally can't do that. So the advice in the forums was, you know, if you're wondering where to concentrate your money, don't worry too much about the speed of the processor. I've got a quad-core i5, so I mean, it's not the slowest processor in the world by any means. But their advice was don't worry about going for something like an i7. You're more going to need a good graphics card. So it's graphics processing power that you need more than anything else when running X-Plane really. That said, I have got 16 gigabytes of RAM and I'm running the 64-bit version of X-Plane. If you get X-Plane from Steam, X-Plane is on Steam. When you download X-Plane, you do have a 32-bit version and a 64-bit version. If you're getting problems with crashes and need to turn down the rendering options, the best thing to do is load the 32-bit version with the Cessna 172, which is about the simplest aircraft there is. Then it doesn't have to draw too much to get you up and running, and then once you're in there you can go in, amend your rendering options so that you turn down the graphic settings a bit, and then load the 64-bit version after that, and you should be okay. That's usually the best way around it if you do get problems with X-Plane crashing because it can't cope with all the graphics that you're asking it to do. So that's the East Anglian coastline. As I say, I set the weather conditions to clear and calm anyway, but that's exactly what it is outside today. It's a beautiful day, a bit cold, but it is February, so can't really expect it to be tropical out there. But no, it's a lovely day, lovely sunshine. And so if we were downloading real weather from the internet, we'd probably get exactly what we've got anyway, apart from a few cloud puffs here and there. So that, I think, will be Lowestoft Harbour there. So we're probably around about Kessingland or somewhere like that at the moment, I would expect. Let's just have a look at a local map and see where we've gone, so you can see exactly the route we're following. So you see that purple line, that's our flight path, if you like. So we started in Cambridge, went down to Ipswich, then to the coastline, and then we've headed up the coastline from there, and our next waypoint is going to be here, the Great Yarmouth Bore, NDB, non-directional beacon, and then we'll be heading up to Humberside, but that's not on the local map as yet. The local map moves as you move, so once we get up to Yarmouth sort of area we might be able to find the airport. But we'll keep going for now. So we're following a road up the coastline, and we're heading for Lowestoft. You can see there's a lorry on the road down there. It seems to be heading inland. But again, traffic seems to be driving on the right hand side of the road. So that'd be nice if that's something they could correct going forward, because for the UK obviously we should be on the left everywhere. X-Plane is made by Laminar Research, which is an American company, so that might be why they've got things on the right hand side of the road, I don't know. I did see something in the forums that said that if you're on a dual carriageway or motorway, then they do drive on the left, and it seems a bit strange that it's half one, half the other, but there you go. So there you can see Lowestoft coming up. And that'll be the harbour there, and the bridge that lifts up is around here somewhere, I think. Can't see the traffic lights for the bridge. Not even sure the bridge has been fully modelled, but this will be Lowestoft, I believe. As I say, you get quite a few fishing boats and ferries. There are some ferries that run out of Lowestoft, I believe. Certainly out of Felixstowe there are. I think there are one or two that run out of Lowestoft as well, but certainly there's a lot of fishing boats around here, lots of fresh fish in the cafes and restaurants around Lowestoft. It's one of its major claims to fame, probably. So we're doing fairly well. Once we pass Lowestoft, Great Yarmouth won't be far away. Lowestoft is in Suffolk, but it's very close to the Norfolk border, so once we turn inland here, which I'm going to start doing now to head up the coastline, I'm going to fly straight over Lowestoft. Once you get around here, you're pretty quickly into Norfolk, and once you're into Norfolk, It's not too far before we'll be reaching Great Yarmouth. Ipswich is the biggest city in Suffolk and Norwich is the biggest city in Norfolk. There's a great football rivalry between those two, being the two biggest East Anglian teams and cities. So that's Lowestoft. You see quite a lot of caravan sites along the coastline as you go as well. There's a large number of caravan sites around this area. Very popular area for holiday makers in the summer. Does get some quite good weather, and as I say, these sort of areas are very good base for going to Norfolk Broads or maybe some of the pretty Suffolk villages like Lavenham and Clare and places like that. A couple of American air bases, Milden Hall and Lakenheath, both in Suffolk, but they're pretty much, don't think much goes on there now. If I remember rightly, Milden Hall is basically closed now, I think, and Lakenheath, there's a few people there, but they're not as active as they used to be, certainly. Continue up the coastline a little bit further, and then we'll check our local map again soon to see if we can see Humberside Airport yet and get the ILS frequency for it. Once we've got that, the ILS frequency will go into our Nav1 radio, or Nav2, doesn't really matter. I usually put it in Nav1. If we want to use Nav2, we can just slide that switch across, and then we'll be using this frequency here. So we're coming up, this will be Great Yarmouth, I think. Just checking the tablet to see if that is indeed Great Yarmouth in front of us. Yeah, we're actually coming up here on Gorleston, G-O-R-L-E-S-T-O-N, Gorleston, and then Great Yarmouth. So we are pretty much where I thought we were. So again, a few cars on the roads. With the automatic direction finder, you can see Ipswich is now back there. So behind us and a little bit to the left. Once we reach the Great Yarmouth NDB, keep an eye on this arrow and you should see it spin round effectively, which means you've just flown over it because it's now behind you. So that's how you know that you've reached the NDB that you were aiming to get to. And if you keep that pointed pretty much at 12 o'clock, then you know you're flying straight towards it basically. And we're not far off being bang on 12 o'clock, so you see us getting even nearer to 12 o'clock now, so we are flying straight towards the Great Yarmouth NDB. And this will be Great Yarmouth in front of us. Just after Great Yarmouth there's a small seaside resort known as Hemsby. See, that car there seems to be driving on the left hand side of the road, so I don't know, it's a bit strange, somewhere on the left, somewhere on the right. It's quite peculiar, but hopefully it's something they can correct going forward. As I say, there are always new versions of X-Plane coming out. This is currently 10.42, I believe 10.5 is currently in beta, and you know, as they bring new things out, they're obviously enhancing different things in the simulation, so that's one of the things they could look at changing. If you watch my previous videos at Gatwick, you'll know that taxiways are an issue. They tend to go straight through buildings on occasions and such like, so they could do the sorting out. And equally, the air traffic control system is not fantastic in X-Plane. It does some strange things at times. But I think the priority with X-Plane was always to make the flying of the aeroplanes as realistic as possible, because after all, at the end of the day, it's a flight simulator. And it claims to be ultra-realistic, and I think that's what they mean. It's the way the planes fly which is ultra-realistic. And certainly I believe it is used for actual training in real life. Training real-world pilots. I'm sure I've read that somewhere. So I think it's held in quite high regard, X-Plane. There is a commercial version you can buy. This is obviously the home use version. There is a commercial version of X-Plane you can buy. And I don't think it's horrendously expensive, a couple of $100 or something. I might be wrong, but you can check that on the Xplane.org website or xplane.com. There's two websites, either of them will give you information like that. So now I'm just going to check the local map and see if Humberside's on there yet. So let's centre on our aircraft. So there we are, we're past Yarmouth, so that NDB should now be behind us. There's Strubby, so that shouldn't be... Right, that's not far from where we want to be, so I suspect... There's Skegness, which is roughly where I live. I'm very close to Skegness. So once we get past Skegness and we come up towards the Strubby NDB, which is 330, then we're very close to Humberside. So I'm going to set the Nav1 frequency across to 330. You can see the Great Yarmouth one's now behind us. You can see the arrow's now pointing down towards 6 o'clock. And we want this arrow now to be going to 12 o'clock instead of 3 o'clock, ideally. So I'd imagine that Strubby NDB is a bit inland from here. At the same time, I do want to be sort of following the coastline, which was the whole point of this, so I'm not going to fly directly at it. I'm generally going to keep fairly close to the coastline. That said, there's not a lot to see around this area. There's no real towns at all around here, much. Slightly built up area there. That could be Hemsby. A few bits of traffic on the roads. As you zoom in, you can see, you know, traffic. Which side are they driving on? They're driving on the right. So there you go. Oh, there's a passenger train. There you go. I mentioned passenger trains earlier. There's one there. See if I can get a better view of it. So there it goes. So yeah, passenger train. So I think generally the graphics in X-Plane are pretty good. It's pretty realistic. There are just some strange quirks, but then I think you'll get that in anything, to be honest. So there's more of a built up area there. So looking at the local map, we are passing Cottisham, Weybourne, and then Skegness is a bit further up. So there's Skegness. So that's where we really want to be sort of heading, up that way. So I'll be over there somewhere. That general direction anyway. So I'm going to take us back to the coastline a bit more. And we're going to try and follow the coastline along. You can see there's a small coastal resort around here. Could be Cromer sort of area, come to think of it, because it looks like we're on the sort of northern tip where East Anglian coastline then turns more to the west, and that would be roughly where Cromer and Sheringham would be. So could well be Cromer and Sheringham that we're coming up on, not sure. I'm just going to check the moving map on the tablet and see if that tells us exactly where we are, so just give me a second. Yeah, I can see Sheringham on there, so I think we're coming up towards Sheringham up here. So we're sort of on the northern part of the East Anglian coastline, and basically the coastline turns inwards to the west and then excuse me, and then across a small bay you're into Lincolnshire, where it sticks out again a little bit. And from there it's a short journey up to Humberbridge and the Humberside airport, round about Hull, which is also a ferry port. Quite sure whether they must go to Holland, I would have thought. Ferries from Hull. Harwich certainly does. Harwich down in Essex, they go Harwich Hook of Holland. Now I imagine that from Hull way you would catch a ferry off to somewhere like Holland. So we're coming over these small coastal areas, small coastal towns, you can see, and we're then going to turn and follow the coastline along here. Try and follow this coastal road if we can. I have got equipment failures turned off in X-Plane, but you can have equipment failures turned on, so you can get random problems. But I've got that turned off for the purposes of this flight. We've also got other aircraft turned off. You can obviously have other aircraft flying around as well, which can mean that sometimes you have to go around at the airport because something's on the runway either taking off or landing in front of you, and sometimes you have to queue to take off and that sort of thing. But at the moment I've got it pretty much set sort of pretty basically so that we can just fly this route. There are lots and lots of options. Oh, look at that train there. Fairly long freight train going down there. So yeah, I mean there's a lot of options in X-Plane as to what you do or do not want to have. It gives you lots and lots of choice as to exactly how it will appear and what problems you may encounter. And just a word about saved games. You can save your game in X-Plane and then come back to it. They're called situations. So in the, I think it's the file menu, you do save situation. Just have a look. Yeah, there you go, save situation, load situation. You can also save and load replays and so on and so on. The saved games are known as situations. There's another freight train in front of us. So if you say wanted to practice landing, for example, excuse me, you could save the situation when you're approaching a runway, and then load that back in and practice the landing over and over again. Keep reloading the situation of the approach, and then you can obviously keep practicing the landings. It does take a while to get used to landing. My landings still are not great, I warn you now. That's probably one of the hardest things, I think, when you're first flying a simulator. Getting landing right is probably the hardest thing in many ways. So we should be heading towards the NDB at Strubby. I don't think we're heading directly at it because I'm following the coastline, but that's fine. We can follow the coastline up here. and then again I'll be checking the local map in a few minutes to see exactly where Humberside Airport is and what the ILS frequency is, and then we can get that dialed in and get ready to land, and that will be the first leg of the Great British Coastal Tour completed. The bridge goes over the road here. I'm not sure if that's a road bridge or a railway bridge. I can't actually see anything on it. It's difficult to tell the difference until you actually see vehicles on it. I think it's a rail bridge. I think. Anyway, so I think we're coming up on another nature reserve area there. Up at Skegness, not far from there, a place called Mablethorpe, there's a seal sanctuary, so you get a number of seals in this area. And recently I believe a whale was washed up at Skegness, which had died, and unfortunately there were a couple down Great Yarmouth Way somewhere as well, I think. So there's a lot of investigation going on to find out why these whales had died. It's an extremely large thing to get washed up on your beach, I have to say, from the pictures I saw online and on TV, but there you go. So, local map. Let's just centre on the aircraft again. Okay, so there's Strubby. Possibly we're still not close enough to see the Humberside Airport. You can zoom this map in and out to your heart's content. So that's Skegness, that's Strubby, and I'd have thought Humberside would be about here somewhere. So let's keep going a bit further, and I'm sure it will appear soon. What's the other way to find the ILS frequency? Just Google it and you'll get ILS frequencies given. If you had air traffic control on in X-Plane, it would of course, you know, vector you into the airfield anyway. Looks like a fairly major road down there. Can't see any cars on it to see which side of the road they're driving on. Unless that's 2 or 3 railway lines, it could be, I suppose. Anyway, let's continue our journey. So we're going past this nature reserve area, continuing up the coastline towards Skegness, not far from where I live now. I'm sort of between Skegness and Mablethorpe, very close to Mablethorpe. Skegness is about 15 miles I guess from here, and Mablethorpe's only a couple of miles up the road. Going the other way there's Sutton-on-Sea, so I'm sort of between Sutton-on-Sea and Mablethorpe. Quite a nice area, I must say. So we'll just follow this coastline a bit further up the coast, and then with a bit of luck Humberside Airport will appear on the local map and we can get the ILS frequency and prepare ourselves to land there. Humberside's not a terribly big airport, not by Heathrow Gatwick standards anyway. I suppose the biggest airport near here would probably be East Midlands, possibly. Don't think that's terribly long distance from here. My partner is currently in Brazil. She's originally from Brazil, so she's gone home for a few weeks, and she flew from Heathrow Terminal 5. So that was a fairly long drive down to Heathrow to get her to her plane. Very hot in Brazil at the moment. I think it's the middle of their summer, and of course the Olympics are there later this year, Rio de Janeiro, so I'm sure there's lots going on in Brazil getting ready for that. staging Olympics is not the easiest thing in the world. So let's just check local map again and see how we're doing. So I'm going to Humberside, there we go, look. So we need to zoom in. So there's Strubby and there's Humberside. So I'm going to zoom in and see if I can see the ILS. ILS 108.75 it says. So we're going to be coming in there like that. So 108.75. Okay, so I'm going to set my nav2 frequency to 108.75. So I'm using my radio panel to set that, and you can see that now says 108.75. So once we get close enough to that, we'll fly straight at it, hit the localizer, which should then make, if that's set to nav2, that should make the aeroplane automatically follow the ILS system and hopefully pick up the glide slope and take us into land. Given that we are only flying at 700, we'll be very close to the airport before we intercept the glide slope at that level. If you're more like at 2,000-3,000 or something, obviously you intercept the glide slope a lot further out. So we're heading up the coastline now. Let's just see where we are in relation to the airport. So there's Humberside Airport. There's us. That's Skegness up there. It's Coningsby. And Humberside is over there somewhere. So I think we're okay heading in the direction we are at the moment. Just going to zoom out and see where we are. We could probably do with turning right and heading up past Skegness now. So we'll try and make sure we pick up the coastline to go up to Skegness. So as I said, this is another nature reserve area here. Lots of wading birds and the such like migrate here in the summer. Quite pretty area. Not terribly built up as the East Coast tends to be. Mainly sort of fairly small seaside resorts as a rule. There are a few larger ones obviously, but I'm just going to check our fuel levels. We're about quarter of a tank, so we used about a quarter getting here, so that's not too bad. We'll have to refuel at Humberside for the next leg. We're still following this coastline. Sure, Skegness might actually be over there. If this coastline goes round in a bay or something, let's just... Well, Skegness is to our right, so I think it's that other coastline over there. I don't think we need to be flying here. I think we're going to have to go across sea for a few minutes, guys, because I think we need to be heading out here somewhere. So I'm going to turn away from there and head towards what I believe to be the Skegness area. So see how that does us. I think we're heading across a fairly large bay area, and then we'll pick up Skegness in front of us. That's where the East Anglian coastline finishes as it goes inland, and then Lincolnshire coastline is here. I think that's where we are. Certainly makes sense. So I could have gone in there and followed this all the way round, but it seemed a bit pointless, so we'll just nip across here and then we'll be back to the coastline around about Skegness somewhere, hopefully. So I say, you can always just check the local map, see where you are. Yeah, we're going to be coming up here, that's okay. And then Humberside is there, so we really ought to be flying due north at the moment, I think. And if we fly due north up here, we can then turn west and head for Humberside Airport. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go due north. Also sets us pretty much heading straight for that Strubby NDB, or not far off anyway. So there we go, that's us flying north now. So I'm going to turn slightly to the west so that we can get back to the coastline rather than heading straight out over the North Sea, but we're sort of in the right direction that eventually we will need to fly to land at Humberside anyway. So my navigation's going pretty much according to plan, I think. Really intend being over the sea quite this much, I have to confess, but we're not a million miles off the coast. You can see the coastline quite clearly in front of us. That's basically where we want to head. That will be the Skegness area, I think. So local mapping X-Plane is useful. You can obviously, always check your current position on there and judge where you need to be or where you want to go. But the moving map, I think, on the Android device is really good. It's really, really simple to install. Basically, once you have installed it on your Android device, you fire it up and go to the menu and hit Show IP Address. That will give you the IP address of your device, and then you put that into X-Plane to send the data to it, basically. And then you get your aeroplane moving across Google Maps, and that gives you another way of seeing exactly where you are. So we're heading a little bit sort of northwest, but that's fine because that angle will take us straight up to where we want to be in relation to Humberside anyway. I certainly don't think fuels can be an issue. We're on a quarter of the tank, and we only had half a tank when we took off, so we've used about a quarter of the tank getting to here. So we should have plenty to get us to Humberside. If we were sort of used more fuel than that, I might have considered landing at Norwich, but I think we're okay to head for Humberside, so that's what I'm going to do. So the Great Yarmouth NDB is now in that direction, so that's behind us a bit to the right, and Strubby is up here, which is fine. We're not going to be far off the Strubby NDB as we approach it, and that will enable us to be pretty good for lining up for Humberside, I think. Just zooming and see if I can't really see anything on the coastline much at the moment, I don't think. So this arrow always points due north, and this is the heading we're flying, so you can see what west is there, so that would be exactly northwest there. Not a lot I can tell you about this area, guys, not a lot to see here unfortunately, but once we get back to the coastline we'll pass Skegness and then we'll head up towards the Humber Bridge. Should hopefully catch a glimpse of the Humber Bridge as we head for Humberside Airport. I've never been to Humberside Airport, I've been past it a few times. It's a reasonable size passenger terminal and such like. I'm not familiar with where they fly out of Humberside, I have to confess. Actually, explain redrawing scenery there. And that I think will be Skegness. Looks like it to me. And Humberside is going to be up there somewhere, I suspect, but I think this is Skegness here, so we're very much in the area that I currently live. So Mablethorpe would be up here somewhere, if that's Skegness. Mablethorpe, that could even be Mablethorpe there. He's quite close to Skegness. And I'd be here somewhere probably. You can see traffic on the roads again. There's a traffic light there, currently on green. Might see that change in a second. Hopefully. Yeah, there it goes. It's just changed to amber and now red. So again, you can see the traffic lights do work, which I think is a nice touch, to be honest. Hardly essential. There's a passenger train there, look, going through there. I think it's hardly essential to have working traffic lights, but I think it is a nice touch. So I'm pretty confident this will be Skegness. So I'm now going to head across here to the coastline. I suspect we're probably now passing Mablethorpe. I guess that's where we are roughly now. And then not much up until Humberside really. Not much for us to worry about along here. So there'll be a bit of traffic on the roads, not terribly busy, but there's a bit around. See a lorry there, a few cars. Again, I think they're driving on the right. This is wrong for the UK, but there you go. let's just check our location in respect of Humberside Airport, or in relation to. There's Humberside Airport. We've just passed Stubby NDB, so we need now, I think, to turn due north up here, and then we'll turn west and head in there. So I'm going to fly due north for a while now. Might take us over the sea a touch, but you can see coastline there, so this is just a bay anyway. We'll leave it there. That's close enough to north, to be honest, and we'll fly up there so I can follow the coastline still, and then we'll turn into the west to head towards Humberside. Quite a nice area this, prone to wind off the North Sea, which can be very cold winds. We tend to do better for weather if the wind is blowing from the much warmer continent, from France and Spain and such like, which tend to get in summer. But in winter, if the wind turns north or east, then you tend to get pretty cold weather. Winds blowing in off the cold North Sea, picking up moisture. You get a lot of rain, which we've certainly had in the UK recently. I mean, not so bad in my area, to be honest, but further north, Scotland, Cumbria and stuff had terrible flooding, and it seemed like it was never going to stop raining. I have to say, it just seemed to rain. Lots and lots of storms being blown across from USA. Apparently it's all something to do with where the jet stream is, but I don't understand meteorology to understand that enough, to be honest, but that's what the weathermen say. It's all something to do with where the jet stream sits and where that's blowing and how that's bringing the storms to us. So we've had a mild and very wet winter. Lots and lots of rain and lots of wind. We've had some real gales. Even around my area there's been some pretty horrendous gales at times. As I say, we haven't had all that rain here. We seem to have managed to escape the worst of it, for which I'm obviously grateful. But you do have sympathy for these people up in Cumbria and Scotland whose houses are all flooded, and must be a nightmare when you've got 3 or 4 foot of water in your living room or something. Not a pleasant experience at all. So I certainly have sympathy for them. So let's check our position again. Yeah, we need to certainly head up this way. I'm going to zoom our map in a little bit. So yeah, hopefully we head to around about this sort of area, and then we'll turn in, and we've got the Ottringham Vor OTR we can use as we head in there. So that's a useful nav aid that once you come across here, then you're going to be lined up for the runway from there. So that should be fine. That's us heading just about due north now. Should enable us to reasonably follow this coastline. Let's just have a look outside, see how we're doing. Yep, don't seem to be any major issues there. Everything looks fine. Just going Try my favourite view again. That really is quite nice. There is also still, linear spot. If we hit linear spot, you'll see, basically, we see that view and that keeps like that. So the spot moves with the plane, hence it's linear. You got Beacon Tower. Not sure that we're near enough to an airport for it to see our aeroplane, so we're not going to see much on that one at the moment. And you've got things like Ride Along, Chase, but I find the most useful one to be Circle, and with buttons on my yoke I can just spin round and view the plane from all sides. That's quite cool. Okay, so we are now pretty much at the coastline here, you can see. Fairly small seaside resort of some sort up there. Getting out of the area that I know very well, I have to say, so not terribly familiar with this area. I do have a brother that lives in Hull, or very close to Hull. Fairly small seaside town here by the look of it. The road coming in from the coast, and there's a few houses there, so large village or small town, I would say. So we'll fly over that. We're now going to follow the coastline. Further we need to go. Well, not very much further, to be honest. If we get to about here, I'm going to turn in there, and that's where we're intending to land. So we're getting very close now. So probably a reasonable time to start reducing our speed. So I'll reduce the throttles a bit and give ourselves a little bit of flaps. We'll look outside and see if you can actually see the flaps. I'm not sure if they're animated on this plane. Yes, they are, I think. Yep. You can see the flap there. And I'll just go back and put a bit more flaps on, and you hopefully should be able to see it's changed. So let's go to there. Spin around the view again. Yeah, I think you can see that that's changed, hopefully. So the flaps obviously work. Most things work in X-Plane. So I'm going to back off the throttles a bit. I'm going to put the landing gear down. I think we're okay putting the landing gear down at this speed. I've got no reason to believe not, so we'll do that, and we'll take a look at the circle view again. There's our landing gear coming down. What I'm also going to do is turn on the landing lights, so everybody knows that's our intention. So I'll hit the localizer and glide slope buttons, but we won't be actually hitting the glide slope yet, or the localizer indeed. We need to now sort of turn due west. So that's what we'll do. We'll turn west from here, and perhaps actually a little bit more west-southwest, something of that nature, sort of like that probably. and that should hopefully enable us to intercept the ILS for Humberside Airport. And once we do intercept that, we'll go to full flaps, reduce the speed a bit further and get prepared for landing. So it looks like we're going to be following this road in pretty much. There's a few cars out here, you can see. As you zoom in, you can see a bit of traffic on the roads, but obviously it's not a built up city or anything, so you're not going to see that much traffic as you would around the cities. Some nice houses, look quite pretty, don't they? So that's a fairly small town by the look of it. Not sure exactly where that is, but I could look at Google Maps and try and work out exactly where we are. But at the moment, I'm sort of more thinking about preparing the landing, to be honest. So you can see the line just moved across there, shot across there. So that's because the airport is basically off to our left, should be. So we're coming down here, we're going to come straight past the Ottringham Vor, which is what I intended, and we'll basically fly here and into land at Humberside. So we'll be passing the Ottringham Vor shortly. I think if you look carefully enough in the world, you can actually see a Vor on the ground, in that you can see a sort of transmitter surrounded by a metal cage or something, but to be honest I've never actually seen one, and I don't know that they're not all on sort of airfield areas that are secure anyway. But there's like a physical presence of a Vor. And indeed the DBs, there'll be a beacon somewhere that's sending that signal out. Of course, a lot of navigation these days is done by, GPS. So, I suppose the need to use ADFs flying at non-directional beacons and all that stuff is probably been superseded to a large extent by GPS navigation and the advent of satellites and all that stuff. GPS is a wonderful tool for lots of things. If you've got a sat-nav in your car, I'm sure you'll know how useful they are. Now our heading has locked now, because you can see no matter what I do with this, I can change it and we're not going to turn because we are locked onto the ILS frequency. So let's just see. Yeah, okay, so we've picked up something here which is telling us where that airport is, so hopefully we will see a left turn coming up before too long. So I'm now going to reduce our throttles a bit more. We're going to put our flaps to maximum. So everything looks pretty much okay from what I can see. It looks like I judged fuel just about right. We're under a quarter of a tank now, and by the time we actually land we'll be pretty much needing to refuel, so that's pretty good. Obviously if you're carrying unnecessary fuel, you're carrying unnecessary weight and then burning more fuel anyway. So you don't want to be necessarily flying with a full tank all the time. You don't need a full tank to get where you're going. You see that arrow spinning then on the ADF. It moved quite sharply, quite sudden movement. That's because Strubby is out there now somewhere. So we flew up past the Strubby NDB some time ago. Trying to see if I could see where it is. There it is. So it's sort of, well, yeah, it's back there somewhere. I'd have thought the arrow might have been pointing there, if anything, but not to worry. doesn't matter to us because we're well past there now. We do need to see a left-hand turn fairly soon. You can see a train down there. Freight train by the look of it, putting down there. A few cars on the road down here. So yeah, assuming that we have indeed lined up on the IRS frequency, then I would hope that we might be making a left-hand turn fairly soon to fly into Humberside Airport. That's what I'd be hoping. And in fact it should be very soon, because it looks like we're there. We're here, we need to be coming down here, so it should be making that left turn fairly soon to take us to the airport. So let's see if that does in fact happen. Cross the fingers and hope that all is well. I could fly the approach manually, but if you've got these systems like ILS, glide slopes and all that stuff, might as well use them. I always just like to think, well, I'd like to see the plane make the turn and then I know that all is well. Fortunately I can't see the airport in sight, so I can't judge whether we should have turned already, but I would have thought, well, I know I slowed the speed down, so we're not obviously progressing as fast as we were in terms of moving across the map. Oh, here we go, look at that, yay, left hand turn, that's what I wanted to see. Beautiful. So with a bit of luck, we're going to see this line here come to perfectly vertical there, and if we do, that means we're on target for the runway, and nicely. That one has linked up the rest of that now. We're actually going past it, so we're a little bit to the left, and then we'll line up hopefully perfectly on the centre line of the runway. So let's see where we're turning. We're turning left rather more than I expected we would. Oh, now that's levelling out. That's a bit better. So let's see if we are indeed flying towards Humberside Airport. Yes, we are. There's the airport. And if I just scroll down a bit, you can see we've turned here and now we're heading straight down here. So that everything looks fine. So that's great. Everything's according to plan. Let's see if we can see the runway. Obviously, you can see a train again. There's another train going through there. Freight train again, I think. But airport? No, I can't see anything at the moment that looks terribly like an airport, I've got to say. We should of course see the VASI lights, VASI, visual... can't remember. Anyway, it's a visual aid at the airport. You should see 4 lights. Ah, now hang on, is that it? That looks like it there. So that looks like the runway, that looks like the vases, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, we've got 4 reds at the moment. So we should see 2 white and 2 red. 4 red means you're too low, you're below the glide slope. 4 whites means you're too high, you're above the glide slope, and the 2 whites and 2 reds, which we will hopefully get, means you're bang on the glide slope. Now we may see our altitude increase a bit as we hit the glide slope, or we may just hit it at about 700 and then straight into the runway, we'll see. So again you can see scenery being withdrawn there, but I'm pretty confident that's Humberside Airport there. So let's just check our fuel. Yeah, we're okay. Plenty of fuel for what we need to get here. I'm not having to declare an emergency and say get me down quick. Speed is still a bit too fast for landing. So back the throttles off a touch more. Really want this round about here. 65-70 is fine. Got to be careful I don't take the throttles too low. Others getting down before we're at the runway. We don't want that. Okay, let's see how that looks. Yeah, okay, I think. We'll probably live with that. So let's see how we're doing in terms of the runway. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be us there. That's the vases. Oh, there's a long train coming through there. Look at that. That's a long freight train. So if I perhaps, that's about the best view we're going to get. You can see that's quite a long freight train coming across there. So you'll see quite a few trains. You can set the options to show birds and deer in nice weather. You get deer hopping around your airport. Deer hopping around at Gatwick Airport doesn't really seem right, but there you go. And also, if you do put that on, you generally find that when you're going down the runway to take off, you get a load of birds hit the windscreen, and then you can't take off because you can't see anything, and you end up having to abort and never get off the ground. So I tend to leave that off because otherwise it tends to sort of mess things up all the time, I've found. You can have hot air balloons on. You can ask it to draw the Aurora Borealis, the northern lights. Obviously not much point unless you're flying in that area of the world, but you can have the Aurora Borealis drawn. There's lots of options for the graphics, how much airport detail there is, how much distance. So if you set the distance high, you'll draw the scenery further and you'll see less redrawing of scenery. When I downloaded from Steam, I've so far downloaded Europe and North American sceneries. You can download Africa, Asia, Australia, all of that, and they all 3 parts. You just add on the scenery. There's another train there. That might well be a passenger train, but can't really tell. No, I think it's a freight train again. It looks a bit like it's got different cars on it, so I suspect that's a freight train again. But anyway, yeah, you can set graphics for all sorts of things, graphic options. You just find what works best for you and what your system is capable of at the end of the day. So a lot of the airports in X-Plane do not have any buildings, which I think is a bit of a shame. I think they could just, you know, put some standard buildings and chuck them at an airport. Even if they're not in exactly the correct place, something would be better than nothing, I feel. But you can download individual airports, a lot of them free, and you can buy payware versions of a lot of airports. The pain bit of it really is the fact that you've got to download everyone individually. You can see our altitude has dropped, so I guess we're near enough on the glide slope. I hope we're going to clear those power lines. I think we are. Got me worried now. Let's have a look. Oh yeah. Okay. You can see we definitely are above the power lines. I wouldn't say we're above them by very much, personally. I think we could. But one assumes the glide slope knows about things like that. A little bit concerned, we are going down too fast here. So I'm going to give us a little bit of lift and a touch more throttle because our speed, I think, is going down too far. I think that's what's causing our problem. So can manually try and guide us in this part. Try and set the view so that I can clearly see the runway. So I haven't climbed very much. I'm hoping that the glide slope will now be okay. Looks like it. It's actually climbing and I'm not doing that. So I think we're okay. Hoping so. Don't remember seeing auto brakes on this aircraft anywhere. No, I don't think we've got an option for auto brakes. Seen one. So I think it's going to be manual braking when we touch down. So you can see the Vasi now, there's one gone white, so we've got one white and three reds. Hopefully, there we go, two whites and two reds, and you can see the plane has started to descend, which means it's hit the glide slope. We are on the glide slope now. We do seem to be going down rather early to me, but hopefully that's going to level itself out and get us to the runway. If we've got two whites and two reds on the Vasis, we definitely should be perfectly on the glide slope, but I think we're going down a bit too quickly, so I'm going to just manually try and make sure that we can two whites and two reds with a bit of luck. We're all gone white now. So we're at the runway. So yeah, that should be us touchdown. Not the greatest landing in the world, but let's get the throttles back to 0. Reverse, and maybe we can find our way to a suitable exit point. Can't obviously see where we're going to go off at the moment. We're going to need a little bit of throttle now in order to taxi off the runway. That wasn't the greatest landing in the world, guys, but we're down. So let's see if we can find a taxiway. As I say, when a lot of the airports do not have buildings and stuff drawn, then you sort of have to improvise a bit, unfortunately. But nothing's ever perfect in life, so I think the simulator's pretty good. I mean, there are things that could be better, obviously, but I wonder if our best bet is to turn around and head back up the runway. I'm sure I saw a taxiway as we were going down there, and there are some buildings, so I'm being a bit unfair when I said there are no buildings at the airport. Looks like there are some, so I'm going to try and head over there. So it looks like, having landed in that direction, the best bet is to turn around and taxi back along the runway to find an exit off to what there is in the way of buildings. So we'll park over there somewhere once we get there. I'm just using the brakes to regulate our speed as we taxi back down the runway. I'd really like to get off the runway as soon as possible, because obviously you vacate it for anybody else, but I seem to have not much choice other than to come back up here. Can't see much. Oh, now there's a sign there which suggests there could be a taxiway there. So I think I'm going to head down here. Oh no, here we go, look, there's something here. So I think we can head off this way. So let's just turn around here. sure that this isn't another runway, or no, it can't be a runway, it's too short. It's got to be a taxiway by the look of it. The black made it look almost like planes have been landing there, but it looks far, far too short to be a runway. You, it says 8 in it, maybe, don't know, but not to worry, not too worried about that. I'm going to head down here. It doesn't look like we can get through to those buildings, so I'm going to park on the grass, or possibly just here actually. Let's park here, that will do us. Oop. Well, it would have done if I'd stopped in time. Not to worry, there we are, we're down, we're at Humberside, and next time we'll continue from Humberside and head further up the coast. Okay, take care guys, bye now.